What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Warner Wolfstead. I'm going to drop a mainly spoiler-free review, kind of more thoughts than a review on Across the Spiderverse. Let me get right into the mix of it here. Not a big Miles Morales fan from the book. It's nothing I ever really followed. I think the character's just kind of redundant in a lot of ways. But having said that, I really did enjoy Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse a few years ago when that came out, and that really helped me build a more appreciative look at Miles as a character. The performances in the movie were, spot on and bangers. That the art style was unique to me as a guy that doesn't watch a lot of animated stuff, and I like the soundtrack, the music. So there was a lot of good stuff in the movie for me. But mainly from that first movie, what I latched onto, and it might have been because I was a new dad at the time, the bond between Miles and his father was big, strong in the movie. And for you guys that have seen it, you know that Miles he gets his power up speech from his dad. It hits you right here. It was good stuff, and I like that. So I wasn't. So after having seen that, I was looking forward to if they did more Spider-Verse movies, if they were going to bring Miles to live action, all which I think I'd be interested to see. So finally, when Across the Spider-Verse rolled around, I was, oh snap, let me pick up some tickets and get in there. And I gotta tell you, I have two separate reviews going in my head, and I'll tell you why. For those of you guys that haven't been in there yet, go in with the knowledge, because I didn't have this, and I feel like there's a part in the back of my brain where I knew this a year ago and then forgot. This is part one of a two-parter. This is Across the Spiderverse, and as the rolling end credits at the end of this movie tell you, Miles Morales will return in Beyond the Spiderverse. There's another installment to these movies, so I guess it's a functional trilogy, I guess, and I forgot that. So as I'm watching the movie, and the writer part in my brain is like tracking pacing and events and various points on the structure, and I'm getting a little annoyed, and I'm saying, oh my god, what's going on here? Like, we're getting at like the hour and a half mark or whatever it was, and cool stuff happened. The animations, the animation did fine. It was not as novel, I don't think, as the first movie, but it had a lot of cool visuals. The music bumped at a couple of places. They had a couple of old 90s jams, which was nice. But story-wise, I said, oh man, like we're dragging this out here. Everybody's doing their thing, and Miles is doing his thing, and Gwen's doing her thing, and new characters are popping up, which is cool. But I'm like, oh geez, like we're running up against the clock, and it's gonna just end. And then there's kind of a key scene that goes down between Miles and his mom, where you're kind of like, this isn't being treated with the appropriate weight that it should be. And given the weight that they treated a similar scene in the first Into the Spider-Verse film, you're like, wait a second, something's fishy here. And then you get that there's a twist, and I don't want to blow it because I enjoyed it, so I'm not going to blow it for you guys. I want you guys to head out and see it. Spend your weekend movie dollars on this and not the fish movie. I think you'll get more bang for your buck. But so yeah, it ends on a semi cliffhanger, which is kind of cool. I don't know how much I want to give away without just blowing up the whole thing. Let's just say there's a team up moment, and it's kind of cool. Like the good guys are going to do their thing, and it's nifty. So I'll leave it at nifty, and won't get into much more than that. But other things that I really enjoyed about this movie is, you always run into Marvel and concerns that they're going to dip into MCU stuff, and they're going to put, the male classic heroes in the back burner and just completely overpower the females. But that wasn't a problem in Into the Spider-Verse with Gwen. I really like Gwen in that iteration. That was fine. She's fine here too. A lot of this movie early on is about her finding kind of her place and where she belongs, but it never comes at the expense of Miles or anything else that's going on. In fact, they kind of intertwine her story and Miles' story, very, very neatly in a lot of ways. So I was okay with that, especially since they use kind of her B plot as kind of a prologue to this movie that runs for probably 10 or 12 minutes before the opening splash of Spiderverse happens. So it was different, but it was all right. It's cool. We got to take a really cool look at the bond between her and her father, and how it mimics kind of Miles' experience with his father, also as a police officer. And we get, through that prologue at the beginning, we see how the Peter Parker in Gwen's universe met his untimely demise, and what the fallout from that had for her life, and how that set her story on the path. And that's what this movie is really all about. And that kind of kicks into the most interesting part, I think, conceptually, that this movie likes to that they like to talk about here, is they use a concept within their multiverse called canon, which I thought was super cool given it's a comic book movie. And we talk about canon here a lot on the channel all the time, and how you have to respect the things that come before, because if you start moving blocks around or changing things, you can pull the rug out from everything that happens down the line. And that's a lot of what this movie is about once its main plot starts getting into it moving forward. Is that there's an event that Miles interferes with in this movie that will cause the repercussions that happen towards the end of this movie and then for Beyond Spider-Verse. But I really thought that the concept of using the label canon as an exchange for what in other fictional timelines we call like fixed points in time, Doctor Who uses that, where it's like, yes, there's a multiverse, yes, it's infinite possibilities of anything that could happen, have happened, will happen, all that kind of stuff, but there are always key cornerstone moments that are almost unilaterally the same across everything, across the spectrum of existence. Like it's the running joke here that Uncle Ben will be the only character that dies and stays dead in Spider-Man. Like that's a defining moment in the Spider-Man concept, how they exist. Like all of those characters have that one character that when they die, when they pass away, it defines what it's their hero's moment. It's their choice that they have to go, with the great power comes great responsibility. They have to follow through on that kind of on that line, on that paradigm. And Miles interferes with, and it's not his fault, he didn't know, he doesn't understand the broader scope of how that works yet, and he learns that by the end of the film. But I thought it was really cool that they called it canon, though, and there's a pretty good visual in it in the movie as well, where Miguel O'Hara of Spider-Man 2099 is trying to show Miles how it all works. Like they do up the hologram thing, and they do the helix kind of spin of, there's reality points and everything's branched and connected together and all that kind of cool stuff. And there's a couple of pretty good jokes in that scene too, where Miles is kind of blown away by the visual, and he says, "Wow, it's like a Spiderverse." And Miguel O'Hara goes, "That's stupid." And then he lays out like the technical scientific name for it, which is like 9 words long. And then he kind of sighs and goes, "Oh, that's stupid too." And so there's a lot of kind of dry humor in it, which is kind of fun. It was entertaining. A lot of the characters have that kind of back and forth with each other. Miles' parents, they're funny. I love those two characters in these two movies so far. This was definitely Mom's movie, and about her bond or her relationship with her son as he's growing up and becoming a man and not being like the little boy around the household anymore. So there's a lot going on with that. They don't rehash the with great power comes great responsibility thing, which I think is good. Like we've seen all that. We don't need to be told that again. This isn't Miles at age 10 or 12, in like as a little guy in like grade school or middle school, whatever we call it now. This is very much him, at 15 or 16 as he's planning like what he's going to do with his life outside of Spider-Man, his college experience, his growing up, his wanting to be more independent and stretching out. So they get into that tale here, and I think that it's going to be, I think they'll neatly close that loop when Beyond Spider-Verse comes out, whenever that does. So I think that's the next story to tell here as, adolescent Miles Morales. Like we don't need to do we don't need a massive recap on how the spider bite happened or the death of the key character that defines him. Like that's not his particular story. It looks like they're working in, I don't think this is a spoiler, but I'll give you 2 seconds to get out of here if you think it is. I think they're borrowing from aspects of his book where his father's life is endangered on the job and may be killed, and that's, I think, the event that they're going to try and put front and center stage in Beyond the Spider-Verse. Like, will he have the wherewithal to let his father die if that's supposed to be a fixed point for greater reasons, or if they'll do something completely different and let him hold true to Miles' interpretation of it, is he's being told you can save one person or you can save the entire world, and he's defiantly proclaiming, "I can do both." That's what Spider-Man does. So it'll be interesting to see how they resolve that. I'm kind of looking forward to that. The cynic in me wants him to make the grown-up decision, to see if his father's fated to pass in the line of duty, then that's, if it's a fixed point, that's supposed to be how it is because there's a greater design. Or if he can creatively kind of skirt that issue somehow. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Other interesting stuff that kind of goes down it got more enjoyable towards the end is like the chaos unfolds with the whole slipping into different dimensions and glitching and things like that. Is we get an interesting take on, you know, the Spider-Man characters, the Spiderverse city that has millions of variants of Spider-Man was kind of cool. I wish they were in there longer and gave more. I know they can't, it's just time constraints, but I would like to have heard more about some of the spider concepts they had come up with. We get to see them mainly in the chase scenes that you might have seen in the trailers, where they're trying to stop Miles from going back after he's told he can't interfere with like canon events. But I would like to have seen a little bit more of them. Front and center in there are a couple that people probably know from other books that I've never read, because I'm way beyond my prime for reading any kind of Spider-Man. But Ben Reilly was there, Scarlet Spider. We got Spider-Gwen. We see some of the other familiar faces from the first movie. They come through. The Peter Parker from that world comes through, and kind of late in the game, but he'll obviously have a big part, in Beyond the Spider-Verse. Prominently alongside Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099, we get Jessica Drew, who is, of course, a pregnant Spider-Woman. Kind of a badass. She's kind of Miguel's second in command here. She's whipping around on a motorcycle, using spider powers in conjunction with whipping the bike around. So it's kind of cool to see that. I think without breaking down and ruining any of the rest of the story, my initial thoughts are worthy summer flick. I mean, this is probably my particular unofficial start to the summer movie season, because it's June. I think you'll enjoy seeing the old crew get back together from the first movie and its expanded roster. It's a fun watch. There's not a whole lot of preaching political nonsense. I mean, there's bits of it attached to Spider-Punk, who's another cool character that I forgot to mention, but it's not hitting you over the head. It's just he's punk rock. It's what they do. It's the genre. It's how they roll. And he's got a pretty killer. His outlook on things kind of saves the day at the end, which was kind of nifty. But it's cool to see another character being drawn in a different art style, completely different than everybody else in the movie. It's like he's encapsulated by his own punky, funky art style, which is kind of nifty. But yeah, guys, I'm gonna bounce. I think this was a good one. This is worth your Saturday trip. It's perfectly fine for your kids. There's not a lot in the way of things that you'd find offensive in it if you're a concerned parent. As a Spider-Man fan, you'll probably enjoy it. As an MCU fan, again, I think between they had to count their lucky stars to getting a cut out of this, because what other victories have they had this year besides Guardians 3? I mean, this is definitely, this will be a little nudge up for them. It'll restore a little bit of goodwill, but I mean, in 5 seconds we'll be reminded that the Marvels is coming and other crappy projects that they've got that they insist on beating us over the head with. Hopefully next month the Nick Fury show does okay, but it's 6 episodes, and who knows? I'm not really big up on that, but that's not what this video is about. This was just about Across the Spider-Verse, and like I said, go check it out. I think you'll enjoy it, and I will see you guys in the next one.